Good afternoon. My name is Noelani Pearl Hunt, and I'm the interim CEO of Hand in Hand Parenting. I'm so excited to get to know you today. Parenting is the most important and rewarding role I have. I bet it is for all of you too. What if it was just a little bit easier? Hand in Hand Parent Club gives advice, support, and caring for the toughest, most important role you have. Today, we're giving you a preview of the personal support that you will receive with the question and answer with Tom Idleman, an instructor with Hand in Hand Parenting. The Hand in Hand Parent Club is a membership that gives you the absolute best information we have to offer, delivered to your inbox every week, with the added support of weekly Facebook Lives and conference calls, a supportive parenting community, free access to our Setting Limits and Building Cooperation course, and question and answer sessions with Patty Wiffler, the founder of Hand in Hand Parenting. And all of it's accessible right on your phone. Today, we are joined by Tom Idleman. Tom has been practicing the Hand in Hand tools as a parent for 15 years and has been teaching Hand in Hand for 8 years. He and his wife are parents of 2 grown boys and 2 grown girls. Tom is a Bay Area native and a former tech writer in Silicon Valley. Tom's favorite part of working with Hand in Hand teaching is teaching fathers and helping couples parent from the same page. Tom, I'm so excited that we get to see you today. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you doing today, Noelani?
I'm doing well. Thanks for joining us. Well, why don't we get started with a real simple question. Why were you looking for Hand in Hand? What were you looking for when you first started your parenting search?
Well, actually, I didn't know I needed hand at all at the beginning. Julianne was already using that. My wife with our daughter. She was 3 at the time. And so I kind of saw that she was doing things differently than I had and that I had been parented. So I was like, yeah, this looks really different. I better find out what this is. So I got more and more involved, and then I actually helped out with one of the first certification classes for Hand in Hand. I became certified myself in the process, and it's been great ever since. So
That's fantastic. And you have a blended family, much like mine. So you have 2 boys and 2 girls.
true.
And one of your daughters is your bonus daughter, as we call them in our family.
Yes, yes.
Oh, fantastic. Well, I'm glad that Hand in Hand has been able to help you with that blending of your fantastic family. And for those of you who don't know, Tom's wife is Julie Idleman, who is our director of marketing. So we get a twofer with Tom and Julie.
Bonus time.
Exactly. Tom, why don't we get started? I have a question here about anxiousness in social situations. So a parent is saying that their 3.5-year-old gets very anxious in social situations. His way of showing that he's anxious is he gets a little aggressive with his little brother, sort of growls at everyone and gets really, really hyper. He is unable to hear anything anything his parents say, and he cries or resists limits or just ignores them. Do you have any ideas to help him get grounded?
Well, I'd say this is a prime example of when you should use special time before you go out. You kind of prime him for the experiences he's going to have, fill up a sense of connection with his parents, with you. So I'd suggest that parents do special time with him before they encounter or go out into a social situation. That should make it easier. As far as the limits go, I would say you probably need to bring the limit more completely or physically. You have to interpose, not aggressively, just make your presence known when you bring the limit. So it sounds to me like, from what you said, the limit is being set verbally, which we try not to do,
Right.
especially with young children, because they might not even hear you or pay attention to you, or How many times have we gone to our kids and said over and over, do this, and they don't respond, and we wonder, well, what am I doing wrong? Well, maybe you shouldn't tell them the limit. You should show them the limit somehow.
Right. I experience that a lot with my younger bonus son. The girls are I can usually direct them and help them with the limits a little bit more verbally, but he really needs that physicality with me when we're setting those limits. Yeah. And once I'm there and I'm in, down in the trenches, then he hears the limit and then, usually doesn't test it for the most part.
Yes.
So I have another question with little ones. So it says, what to do to make little ones, a 1 and a 3-year-old, stop acting out? It's repeated yelling, throwing, defiance, backtalking that makes me lose it and yell for them to stop.
Well, I think the first problem you have to deal with is not the kid's behavior, but the fact that you're reacting to the way they're behaving. So I'd say, get a listening partnership with somebody you trust and just vent. Say, these kids drive me crazy. All they say is, and it's all about attitude too, because, when you really think about it, there's nothing scarier than a totally compliant kid, because that kid is fearful.
Mm-hmm.
He's scared of what you might do to him if he steps out of line.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's hard and it takes a lot of practice. I fail at it still, but to realize that the feedback you're getting from them is honest, and you should actually be proud of the fact that they feel comfortable enough with you to say, on occasion things that are glorious, like, I hate you, Dad. You're the worst one Dad has ever lived. That's actually a good thing. I know it's hard to grasp that, but for them to have that comfort to actually share that feeling with you just speaks to the level of connection you have with them. So I'd say if your kid is yelling at you, you're doing right. You're doing a good job.
I must be doing a really great job. Because my 20-year-old is always yelling at me. So thank goodness for listening partnerships. So I have a parent here, and I'm sure a lot of parents out there have dealt with this. How do you deal with complete laziness when it comes to tasks?
Complete laziness. Clean up your room. Yeah, sure. Game Boy. Yeah, I got that. So I'd say you could kind of play with it somewhat. It's time to cook dinner. You go, oh man, I really need to cook dinner now, but I really don't feel like it. I think I'll just sit here and watch TV. Or, play with their feelings. Say, oh my God, I'm supposed to vacuum this room. Oh, you don't want to. Oh, no, it's terrible. Can't we just sit around and watch TV all day? That'd be great. We just sit around and watch TV all day. So, you have to play with it to get them out of that. To get them out of that mode where they just don't want to do anything. Another thing you do is make the task fun.
Mm-hmm.
Especially with the young children, it's like, oh, they love it. Vacuuming looks fun. Make it funner. Dance around, sing while you're vacuuming. Have a ball with it. See if that get anything to get them out of that mode where they're just passive and take in the request and go out there.
The common theme in the last 2 Facebook Lives this morning were a lot of playing with it, like you were just talking about, and play listening. Could you possibly give an example of the way that you play listened with your boys as they were growing up?
Let me think about that for a second. Yeah, sure. With Patrick, it was like, there were some times where he wouldn't want to do his homework and stuff, and I was like, I just like goofed around with it. Just I said before, just said, "Oh man, this homework is awful." I take the paper and throw it across the room. You know, I'd I don't know. I threw his. I don't know. I don't see such doing this aggressively, but I'd throw his book on the floor and stomp on it.
Yeah.
Just something to get some momentum on it.
Right.
We get stuck in positions all the time as children and as adults. And it's good to just get some momentum, get it out of that stuck place.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It sounds like also physicality is really a big part of it. I know that with my kids, when they start to get really physical, they then all of their feelings start to come up, which is then a whole nother atmosphere of things that you have to do. So, Tom, we have a bunch of viewers, and I'm just going to invite them to add any questions that they might have. With that are out there right now, just in case. So I know that you did, you threw your son's book on the ground, but was there other stuff that you did that was really funny or just, ridiculous stuff? I'm getting fed information too from your wife. So
what is she saying about me? Oh no. I don't know what she's referring to. Now I'm flummoxed because somebody is talking behind my back. Apparently.
No, she's not talking behind your back.
Oh, yeah. So we use this word around at my house when my daughter would say something that was not acceptable in social contexts. We'd say we had made up this cuss word called beshnuggle. So we'd say beshnuggle, and then we'd be, oh my God, you said beshnuggle. Play with that. Just say it around the house and say, oh, don't say anything. You can say anything, but don't say, that B word.
That's hilarious. I know that a lot of parents have difficulties with, we've gotten some questions about older kids and teenagers. And since you've used hand in hand through your kids being younger and then all the way through to now, do you have any advice on what does say, for instance, stay listening look like, or play listening, or even special time look like with older kids that are in their teenage years?
Well, stay listening. I'd say that the key to all the tools and using them is that as your children get older, you have to be more subtle on how you apply them. So it can bring up a problem with special time because they're supposed to be timed, and the child is supposed to know what the time limit is when the timer goes off. But making that as explicit when they're older is not really as effective. Mm-hmm. But like with stay listening, I'd leave stay listening all the time when I was driving somewhere.
Oh, good idea.
Because I had my focus was off them. So teenagers really freak out when you look right at them and say, "What's going on with the day? How are you doing?" So when you're driving, you have your focus in front, you're paying attention to the road, and they're just hearing your voice, and they're free to say what they want.
Right.
They often share with me things that they never share with me at other times. Mm-hmm. I can look for the reactions if I need to in the rearview mirror, occasionally glance up there. But, I've even used special time with my great aunt, who at the time was like 83. I was like, I just sat down and started playing solitaire with her because she liked to play solitaire.
Right.
And I was talking to her about what was going on, and as she didn't know there was a timer. There was a timer in my head, and she didn't know I was doing exactly what she wanted, but that's what I was doing. And she didn't know my entire focus was on her, but she could feel it. So you can really use these tools with anyone at any time in their lives. And it's really beneficial.
One of the things that we were also asked to, I know I'm going kind of off script, but one of the things we were also asked a couple of weeks, or last week, or maybe a couple of days ago, was whether or not you could do listening partnerships with your significant other. And with you and Julie being, very kind of ingrained in hand for such a long time, I wanted to ask you, how do you feel about using listening partnerships? Do you guys use those with each other? Are there certain times where you go to other people to talk about things in your listening partnerships?
Well, I think mainly the goal of listening partnerships to be with somebody you don't know or you don't interact with, is spot on. It's a really good practice. But I think, if you do listening partnerships with somebody you don't interact with and with your significant other at different times, that's fine. It's worked for me. I've had times where I've shared things with Julianne. We've had listening time together. The pitfalls will be, of course, it's really hard not to refer back to what was discussed when it's actually your significant other you're sharing with. And it's also hugely impossible to talk about your significant other. If you have complaints about them you want to talk about in listening time, you can't say, well, my wife really drives me crazy. She does this thing that's horrible and gets on my nerves. She's right there and she's like, oh, yeah, what is that? So that doesn't work. So you have to you really have a listening. If you want to share that kind of information with somebody, feel free to. I really suggest you do that with somebody that is remote from you. You have a connection with, but is remote from you, not in your life so much.
It's a really good suggestion. All right, let's move over to some more of our questions. So I have a question here about a 6-year-old boy. Why is my child defiant when I try to leave home? He's a 6-year-old boy. It can't even be something it can even be something he really wants to do, like a birthday party or Easter or amusement park, and he will physically resist, and I have to carry him to the car, and he physically resists to get in the car too. So she's trying to see, number one, why is he defiant, and what should she do?
Well, I'd say one of the best things about hand-to-hand tools is that you don't need to discover the reasons behind things. You just use them. And so I'd say don't focus so much on figuring out why this bothers him, but I would encourage you and stay listening somehow. If you give him stay listening, that he gets around to this at some point. You could ask him, why does this bother you so much? And try to get that out of him and deal with that. I'd also say that before you go somewhere, special time is a tool to go through to make it easier, make him feel more connected to you. Because you can actually see, although we're not really concerned with the reasons, you can see why going out of the household and having other factors interact with you makes it feel like that connection you have with your parent is threatened or interfered with or broken. So, building that connection before you go out into the world, even if it's for something fun, is one thing I do. Another thing I do is I try to get him, just for his own good, to try to express why it is he's so bothered by this. Maybe he'll come to that conclusion himself, that he feels the bond between you and him to be threatened by this. Even if it's something fun. I mean, You're going on a roller coaster. I'm not paying attention to the connection between my son when I'm on a roller coaster, am I? I'm paying more attention to the roller coaster. So, and so is he. Maybe he's scared he's feeling that connection is disappearing from his side too, or is in threat, or, it's important to convey the fact that that connection is resilient and it can come back.
Mm-hmm.
So, just his assumption that that feeling of the connection waning does not mean it's going to go away.
Mm-hmm.
So just focusing on keeping that connection strong. Maybe a special time after you go on is a good idea to reconnect.
Mm-hmm. These Facebook Lives are going to be part of the Parent Club, and it's so great to be able to interact with somebody on a live basis. Like I was saying earlier, we have a bunch of viewers from all over. So any of the viewers who are out there who want to ask any questions, please feel free to ask them in the Facebook comments below. We do have some questions that we had from our earlier Facebook Live sessions with Patty that Tom and the other instructors are answering. So I'm going to move on to some more questions. So Tom, just so everyone knows who's out there watching, Tom and Julie have older children who have been raised with hand-in-hand parenting. So they are they're experts, I will call them. As much of an expert as you can be of parenting, so that's pretty low. But they are they've been using hand-in-hand for a long time, and so any questions that we have about older children would be we can answer. So I have a question here that says, I love help knowing how to teach my child loving kindness and sharing in social situations where children aren't doing this.
Yeah, well, I'd just say model the behavior. Model the kindness you want him to display, so he can just feel that and see that. And, I'd just say, maybe bring attention to the fact that they're not sharing somehow and investigate how that makes them feel,
Mm-hmm.
or how that makes her feel, whatever. It's like, do you have a feeling about this? These people are just sort of callously interacting around you.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't it be better if we could just connect with them and be kind? And so I'd say that's probably the best approach. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I have a bunch of questions, so we will not come to an end of questions here with you. So
We're not going to run out of them anytime soon.
No. So I'm struggling with my 3-year-old son. I feel like he's just doing the opposite of anything I ask him to do or stop doing. I'm working on special time with him, but I'm sure I can do better. I just find that I'm really frustrated most of the time and completely exhausted. So she probably just needs a little advice on what to do next.
Well, I'd say if you don't have one, get a listening partnership as soon as you can. Because, you're in no shape to help your kid if you're not clear yourself, So I'd share these feelings of frustration with other people. And, it's okay if you're not up for special time at some point. We get tired too. So, pick your spots if you find that special time is getting overwhelming to you. Make sure you're well resourced when you go into special time, because you can't do special time effectively if you have a lot of emotional stuff you're dealing with. You have to be able to offload that some and refill your reservoirs. So I'd say.
We were talking earlier about special time, or we were talking earlier with Mary Lupe about special time, and she was talking about how it's essential for parents to first take care of themselves, to do some of that self-care and do the listening partnerships.
Yes.
In order to be able to open up that connection for them to be able to connect with their children.
Yeah, well, if you're empty, there's no way to do special time effectively.
Mm-hmm.
I can't do 30 seconds of special time if I have something that's weighing me down.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All I want to do is talk about myself with my kid, even though my kid doesn't care.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
So I have another question about a little boy. He is 4.5. And so he doesn't talk to adults or children outside of his immediate family or close friends. He won't sit next to someone he doesn't know, even if the parent is on the other side. I figured out he'll become more confident over time, but I'm wondering if there's fear behind the behavior and how can I help him release it? One example is at church. He was left playing on his own while my husband went to the restroom, and on his return they heard his son crying and trying to hide. The rest of the kids and adults had come to the church, and their son, who was familiar with the people at the church, he knew his dad would be back soon, yet he had such a strong emotional reaction, even though his dad was nearby. So she's trying to figure out a way to help release whatever might be holding him upset.
Yeah, well, obviously the answer is going to be stay listening. That's the obvious answer. But it sounds to me like there's an issue with your son feeling like he's empowered. So I would say special time where he leads is very important. Just kids have an inherent ability to have confidence in themselves and empower themselves. They just have to be free to practice it and kind of exercise those muscles. So, maybe listen with that somewhere. Oh God, there's some new person. I don't know them. Oh my God. Please hide me. I need to hide now. Can I duck down behind you? Just acknowledge the emotion and bring it up. But that's just that will go eventually. I had a very shy child and I had a very outgoing child. So the shyness eventually went away, but it was all around the confidence that she had in interacting with other people. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I'd say that what you really need to focus on is building that confidence and using the tools to get at that. So.
Mm-hmm. And we have some classes about this, I think it's sleep confidence, because we see that sometimes kids have a hard time sleeping. And we have the separation anxiety class in our parent rescue series that you can do self-guided classes online, and being a part of that parenting club, you get 25% off of those classes, along with getting the setting limits and building confidence or building cooperation course in the parent club. So when you sign up for your $15 a month, you get that. So you have some new tools in your tool belt for this. So I have a really good one, and I find this with my two younger ones. So how do you handle competitive kids? The need to win, to run the fastest. How do you help relax super competitive children?
Well, you really have to model the fact that winning is not the only goal. Mm-hmm. So you have to be careful on how you're responding to your children. It's like I had children who believed for one reason or another that it was not okay to make mistakes. So I had to play with that a lot and be the one who made mistakes for them to know that. So Again, I always go back to played listening because that's my favorite tool. But competitiveness, winning is the only goal, is like, uh, man, that's a really complicated question. You have to use many of the tools to break that down, not just played listening. Maybe stay listening around what it's like to lose. I mean, it's really hard for people to get used to that feeling.
Mhm.
Grown men aren't used to that feeling. Losing. You can see it when you watch any sporting event. It's very hard to go through that. So
Right.
it's just like kind of, I think competitiveness is driven by to a large part, and you can see this in many examples. It's driven by the fear of losing, the fear of feeling that pain of losing,
Mm-hmm.
that disappointment. So
Well, you talked about men and grown men not even understanding how to lose. So,
yes,
this work is highly connective to your feelings and various things where in society we've taught men to kind of tamp that down a little bit and put it in a little box and ship it off to somewhere else. Can you talk about the work that you've done with dads over the course of the last, 15 years? Just the work that you've done with them and how and what you do with them to try to help them through their listening partnerships. Because I know listening partnerships are very difficult for me to share, and I can't imagine, if my feelings were told to be repressed all the time by society, what that would be like. So can you talk a little bit about that?
well, I think the key is to start with the assumptions, the expectations that society forces on you as a man. I usually start my parenting classes with dads by saying, okay, list everything that's expected of you as a father. So, and then it's tearing all that down, really, because a lot of expectations are unreasonable, and society has a lot of barriers to men expressing the way they feel. And just, it's there's so many things that get in the way. And the thing that's not admitted is that sometimes the things that are expected of fathers, if they go against the expectations, they're told that they want they their partners would like to see different behavior, but when they actually display it, their partners have somehow bought into the whole expectation.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's like, yeah, be vulnerable. And we hear women say that all the time in our lives, that we should be vulnerable.
Right.
Yeah, but then you try it, and sometimes your partner's like, what's going on? This guy, what is this guy? Is this guy weak or something? Because they bought into the concept too. So it's a multi-layered problem you have to approach.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Just going, okay, I'm still here, I'm still capable,
Mm-hmm.
but I have to emote too. I have these emotions. Doesn't mean I'm not going to quit my job tomorrow. does not I'm go- does not mean I'm not going to stop being the strength you need. So
Mm-hmm.
the funny thing about hand in hand is we discovered that if we actually do these tools and model this behavior and model these tools, they actually make you stronger. It's counterintuitive to what society tells you, but it's true. So,
How have you seen the dads in your listening who do listening partnerships or in your dad's group change over the course of the time that you've had them there?
well, usually it's just like a conversation where one person is speaking and the other is listening at the beginning. And then they start to get through to real stuff later on. So, yeah, for example, like I've seen women almost immediately on occasion open up. Some do not,
Mm-hmm.
but man, it might be a listening partnership. And the whole thing is that you have to stick with it because it might start out that way for you because that's all you're comfortable doing. And there's no timetable. So it's like the partnerships, when they start out, they're almost like, hey, how's it going? Well, today I went fishing and I worked and work was interesting and there's nothing of consequence discussed. But it's a whole practice of getting into the discussion and listening without responding. You also see men have real time holding back on advice. So I have to do some course correction at the beginning and say, yeah, just listen to what he's saying. Just be there for him.
Mm-hmm.
So,
what's the most common theme that are the most things that you see men have difficulties with parenting? Is it, and then what is the thing that you see them most kind of take to when it comes to hand-in-hand tools?
well, I'd say the biggest problem I've seen with fathers is the concept that limits do not have to be set harshly. If there's one thing I could tell every father, if only if I had to pick one thing, I'd say, you know what? Limits don't have to be set harshly. Because they're always set harshly for me. And that's how we're taught to parent as fathers. Wait till your father gets home.
Right.
I'd say that's the main thing. And then what was the other part of your question? I'm sorry.
What is the one tool that men like just flourish with hand-in-hand tools?
Play listening, I'd say. Dads really like the opportunity to be goof. It takes a lot of pressure off you as men to be instead of disciplinarian, just be silly with the kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd say special time too for that. It's the very same reason, but play listening mostly. I might be biased because that's my.
My significant other, even before we learned about hand in hand, was doing all of these tools, and he is great with all of our kids, just really significant. And what we've seen is our kids really we've kind of fine-tuned a lot of the things that we do. And one of the things that we really have done a lot of work on is special time. And we're able to really, with all of our kids, use that special time. And because we tag team them, one can be upstairs with one of the kids doing special time while the other one's downstairs with the rest of the kids. And we've seen our family really flourish with that focused time for each of them with both sides of us. So I absolutely agree with you that I think my favorite tool is special time. So we'll have to agree to disagree on that one.
Honestly, a lot of people, when they first hear about special time, they say, oh, I already did that. But it's the fine tuning you're talking about. Do you really pay full attention to your children?
Mm-hmm.
Do you really let them lead the activity?
Right.
Do you time it? Are you on your phone having special time with them? Are you doing something else? Is your full attention on your child? Are you really doing special time? Turns out they're not. So.
Well, I did special time with our little guy on Friday, and we decided to record a Lego movie. And the little director came out in him. He was telling me where to put the phone in order to record it and said I wasn't doing it right, and then said, let me have that really quickly. And it was really great. And we were able to set a limit to say that we were going to do this only for 5 minutes because it was bedtime. But he was having a real hard time going to sleep, or not going to sleep, just going upstairs to go to sleep. And so we did the special time, set the limit. I let him, kind of control the whole thing. He got to choose what we were doing. And then no problem. Upstairs, hopped right into bed, no issues whatsoever. So I swear by it.
Yeah, well, I've also heard people say, well, what should I do if my kid wants to play video games for special time? I say, just sit next to them and delight in what they're doing. It can be interactive. You
Yeah,
know, you
it
can watch
can.
them playing a game and say, oh, that's good. That's a huge good move. Good move there. Hey,
We
this is a cool video game. Jeez, look at the graphics. This is awesome. Look at that thing. It looks neat. So
we,
kind of,
yeah, yeah.
kind of, kind of join them in their enjoyment of it. See, people think of video games like, okay, my kid wants to do special time. He wants to do video games. That means I sit next to him passively, just watching the computer or the TV screen or the
Mhm.
console screen, whatever.
Right.
Uh, just make it more interactive and you're delighting in them. That's the main goal of special time is delighting in what they are doing. So never forget that, even if they ask to play video games.
That's a really good point. Albert, my significant other, usually asks questions about what's going on, even though he absolutely
Sure.
knows what's going on, and that usually the kids just they light up when he starts asking that because they get to explain what's going on and what Pokemon does this or what lightsaber does this, and they get really excited. It's really great. All right, so I have some questions here. So how was special time for you when you started doing it at first?
Oh man, impossible. It's like set a timer for 5 minutes. I'm not supposed to think of anything else but what my kid is doing, and the inclination to guide the play is there all the time. Why don't we not do that? And you know, kids will test you on what exactly. You mean I could do anything during this special time? I remember my son. I paint these little miniature figures. They're highly detailed. And so for special time, he wanted to smash them together. I was at the point where it's like, okay, am I really in this or not? Am I really going to let him do anything or not? And I decided that sacrificing a few of these painstakingly painted figures was fine to show him that I really was in it. But it was hard at first. Because at first they do things like that. Believe me, if there's something you don't like, special time, pick an activity. They will pick the activity you don't like. They will do it. Don't be surprised. It will happen.
So Hand in Hand talks about setting limits gently and calmly. And I know for me, that's difficult because I'm loud and boisterous and I have very big emotions when it comes to this kind of stuff. Do you think it's harder for people who are like that, whether it's myself or, other people, to adjust to being able to do those limits gently?
Well, it's hard if that's your personality. It's also hard if you were not raised that way.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
For example, I was raised by both my mother and father. Limits were never set calmly, ever. It was like yelling and screaming, and based on fear of them, they get complaints. So it was really hard for me. Even when I first heard that, I was like, oh, what are you talking about? This is crazy. You set limits without getting angry and mean, and you're crazy. The kid's never going to listen to you. What are you talking about? So you have to break through your own preconceived notions about that. Just
Mm-hmm.
try it. That's what I have to say. The best advice is just try it and see if it works or not.
Mm-hmm.
Think of it as a scientific experiment, if nothing else. Just try it.
And did you find it difficult at first, or did it take a long time for you to be able to do those setting limits gently?
I still have struggles with it. Sure. It's a struggle. It was a huge struggle to start with.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And I finally began to realize that it's possible. I couldn't even do it at that point, but I knew it was possible because I'd seen it done. So yeah, it's hard. Just be easy on yourself. That's the main thing is like be easy on yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Give yourself a break. You know, trying to adopt these things and fully internalize them is not easy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They sound easy. The tools are easy and when they're written down on a piece of paper and they're like, oh yeah, do this. But when you actually try to do it, it's a struggle.
Mm-hmm.
And be gentle with yourself and take time with it.
What would you say to a parent who is a little bit on the edge? Like you were saying, it makes sense in theory to read stay listening and play listening and special time. It makes sense in our minds, as we read it and compute it into our brain. But it's when we actually start doing it that we find that there's that difficulty to kind of let go of, our past and whatnot. What would you say to a parent if they were in it in theory, but just not quite all the way there in practice? What would you say to them to encourage them?
I'd say fake it until you make it. Go through the motions, build a pattern, and then the intent, the legitimacy, the authenticity will come later. But really, it's like when I first heard about it, I was like, oh, what's this all this namby-pamby nonsense? Where do we go? What are we going to do next? Go hug a tree or something? It's like, I had to calm those voices, and they come back and over again. And, I just say you have to stick with it.
Mm-hmm.
Stick with it. Even if it feels like it's not natural and it's not working, stick with it for a while. Make yourself a deal and say, I'm going to try this tool for this length of time and see how I feel at the end of that. Really.
So,
because it does not come naturally to everyone.
No, it doesn't.
No.
So we have a question from our Facebook Live audience from Rebecca, and she said, "Hi, or hey, Nolani and Tom. I asked Anna's live question earlier, and she couldn't get it expanded. She asked a question, and we were right at the end. So she's looking for expansion a little bit. So her daughter is 5 years old. It's hard to get to places on time, and I managed to get playfully around it. Recently, she's been expressing upset that she doesn't have time to play play at school before lessons start. I try to encourage her by reminding her that if we get ready quicker, that she'll have more time, but I'm cautious not to make it sound like a bribe or a treat. Also, after I'm unsure how to respond when she expresses her upset that she didn't make it on time. In my head, all I can think is, you would have more time to play if you didn't take 10 minutes to put on your socks. Should I just focus on playfulness, getting ready before then, or stay listening afterwards?
I'd say, why not just play with the idea of putting on her socks for 10 minutes. Just play then. Make that play. Sit down with her and have fun putting on her socks for 10 minutes. Make it into a game. Play with it. Move it around some. Get some movement there. So I get the sense it's like, go get ready, and then you're either getting upset while watching her get ready, and it's taking so long, or you let her go and get ready by herself. So I'd say just be with her and play with that. Have the playtime then. Why not? And then, if she expresses the fact that she'd rather be something, do something and put it on her socks for 10 minutes, and say, okay, then just put it on her socks and we'll go do that. Put the play into the struggle that she's having and maybe loosen up that way. And I definitely say, play listening when you get home is also a good thing.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Rebecca, I hope that answers your question. If you have more that you want us to expand on, you can put it right there in the Facebook comments. So, in light of my night last night, any ideas on how to get my 9-year-old to go back to his bed?
Oh man. Well, actually, the feeling of connection he has with you is going to directly influence how safe he feels going back to his bed.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say that we also have a problem in society with co-sleep. So we view it as a bad thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And in many cultures, it's not a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, in most of our history as humanity, we have not practiced anything but co-sleeping.
Mm-hmm.
So it's also kind of a shift in perspective again, and seeing that this is natural and something you're trying to overcome this natural inclination to be where you're safe, which is by your parent. I'm at the most vulnerable I am the whole day. I'm asleep. And how am I supposed to feel safe off in that room by myself? Number one, the sense of connection is strained by that right away, right? Because your kid is off in another room, not with you. So I'd say that, if your goal is to get your kid to sleep on his own, stay listening, all the tools, you have to use all the tools to keep that sense of connection between you very strong. Because it has to be very strong for them to feel confident enough to sleep by themselves.
Mm-hmm. We were talking about how it was that you start off with one tool, but that you end up kind of waterfalling into all the other tools, and that's how you make a one like perfect type of toolbox in order to use all of them. And it starts with usually the listening partnership, so you can get past your own stuff, and then you can have your special time with them at a very focused time. You can do stay listening even when you're at your most exhausted or tired because you've had those listening partnerships. So all of these tools kind of go on top of each other like a Lego set almost.
Yes, you have to use all of them. True.
It's not just one thing. So I have a couple more questions. So I have one that says, my 5-year-old who's not in school yet does not share with other kids at all. He can play with their toys at their house, but if any child comes to our house, they're not allowed to touch anything or go in his room. He gets grumpy easily, and kids don't like being around him. Do you have any suggestions?
No one likes to share. I'd say you really have to model and kind of feel out why they don't want to share the things. So what kind of emotions is that bringing out? And then I'd suggest that when you're successful in getting your child to share something, that you want to stay listening, you want to be right there for them and check in with them and see how he's feeling and support him in that.
Right.
Because it's not going to feel good to him if he decides to do it. The problem is waiting for him to decide to do it. And the only thing I can say is fill him up with a connection, because it's really not about the thing. It's about his sense of connection with you, and him feeling confident that he can share something with somebody else. So, yeah, I'd fill him up as much as possible I use this metaphor all the time of filling people up. That's the way I like to think of it. It's like, it's being emotionally drained, you have no reserves. So it's building things up, and, it's just a really sensitive thing with sharing. We have many different articles on the website about sharing,
Oh, right.
difficulties children have with it, and
Mhm.
how to handle it when two kids want to play with the same toy, for example.
Right.
Patty has spoken brilliantly on that, way better than I could. Uh, and I'd read the articles on the website too, just to get a perspective on that concept of sharing.
Mhm.
There's several. And just like going there, and your main focus would be, what is my child going through when he's sharing something? How can I be there for him when he feels that?
Right.
Why does he not feel confident enough to share this thing with somebody else? What does he feel like he's losing when he's sharing something?
Mhm.
So that's what I'd suggest.
That's great. So Rebecca got back to us. She was the one whose daughter was taking a little bit longer to get ready in the morning, and then getting frustrated when she got to school. So she sent this message. She said they usually do play when putting on their socks, which is why it
Oh,
usually
good.
takes 10 minutes. What
Great.
should what should she say after when her daughter gets upset that they had no time to play at school? So she does a lot of reconnection in the morning because she's the only child. Should she ask her to think of ways to get ready for school quicker? Gently remind her that if she wants to play, she has to help make it happen by getting ready a little bit quicker.
Yeah, well, I do a lot of stay listening around her being upset that she didn't have more time to play. I do that so at least she can offload those feelings, and might be that it's going to be that way for a while. She's going to mess around trying to get her socks on, and then she's not going to have enough time. She feels like have enough time to play when she's at school, and she's going to be upset about that. That might continue for a while.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So I just say all you can do is really be there for her. The solution might not come as fast as you want it to. Just might not.
So some stay listening with her when she's getting that big upset when they
That's
get
it.
to school.
Yeah.
Right. That's hopefully that helps, Rebecca. Well, Tom, I just want to thank you so much for your time. Before you go, I just want to say something about the Parent Club, and I have one last question. So we have been doing Facebook Lives for the past, I guess, 5 days now. We had 3 with Patty, 2 with myself and Julie, where our parents were able to tell their stories. So far, 3 today, and we have 1 more at 7 p.m. today. The Hand in Hand Parent Club is a membership that gives you the absolute best information we have to offer, delivered to your inbox every day with the added support of a weekly Facebook Live like this one, and conference calls, a supportive parent community, and free access to our setting limits and building cooperation courses, along with the live Q&A question sessions with Patty Wiffler, our founder. So today, in the spirit of Hand in Hand, I am wondering if there was one good thing that happened this weekend or today that you would like to share with us.
One good thing. Oh, this is so cheesy and nerdy, but I heard today they are in the process of making Good Omens, which is one of my favorite books, into a television series. It's
Yay!
a well, it's silly how much entertainment affects our lives, but it affects mine. So,
Well, if it's a good book, then it should be a great TV
oh,
series.
I will also say my stepdaughter today, even though my job is doing the dishes, saw that I was not doing well today when I got up because I was having a non-caffeine slow day where I did the dishes.
Oh, that's great.
He helped me. That was
That's
great.
that's fantastic.
That was great. Yep.
That's so good to hear. Well, Tom, thank you so much for being a part of the Hand in Hand family and for sharing your wonderful wife with us too. We appreciate it. And I am sure we will see you as one of our teachers, or excuse me, as one of our instructors on our Facebook Live in the Parent Club.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Have a great day.